I'm 30. I let my mother control my Amish marriage and lost my wife. The kitchen door clicks shut behind Rebecca, and I hear her shoes on the porch boards. The loose one, the third from the left, the one I kept saying I'd fix. I'm standing at the sink with my hands in cold dishwater. The lamp is hissing low. Outside, the November wind is moving through the corn stubble like it's looking for something. My mother is sitting at my table. My table. The one Dat and I built the spring before the wedding. She says, "She'll be back by morning, Joseph." She always comes back. I don't turn around. I can't. My jaw is locked up so tight I can taste iron in my back teeth. Rebecca didn't take the buggy. She took the lantern off the hook by the door, the small one, with the dent on the side, from when our boy dropped it last winter. That's how I know. That's how I know she isn't coming back by morning. I'm 30 years old. I've been married for 7 years. And I just watched my wife walk out into the cold. Because I let my mother sit in a chair that was never hers to sit in. The wind shifts. I can smell the chamomile Rebecca was drying over the stove. No, wait. It was the lemon balm. She'd switched them out that morning and I hadn't even noticed. That's the kind of husband I'd become. Quick pause. My name is Joseph, and this is Tool and One. If these stories stay with you, if they remind you of something the old ones knew, subscribe. It's free, and it's the reason I can keep telling them. Tell me in the comments, was there ever a remedy or a quiet wisdom in your marriage that someone else tried to take from your hands? And if you want to go further, a super chat or a membership, that's you telling me these old ways are worth remembering. That keeps this going. Now, back to what happened. In our community, a man's house is supposed to be his house. That's what they tell you the day you're baptized, the day you marry, the day the bishop lays his hand on your shoulder and calls you the head. But the truth nobody says out loud is this: a man's house belongs to whoever raised him longer than his wife has known him. My mother raised me for 23 years before Rebecca ever stepped into my life. And the old ways say a son honors his mother. The ordning doesn't spell out how far that honor goes. It doesn't have to. You watch, you learn. You see your father step aside when your grandmother walks into the room, and you understand without anyone teaching you that the woman who carried you outranks the woman who chose you. And the remedies, that's where it lived hardest. Ma'am was the one with the hands. She knew the comfrey root, the yarrow for fevers, the golden seal for the baby's mouths, the raw garlic crushed in honey for the deep coughs. When Rebecca came into my house with her own grandmother's recipes, the lemon balm tea, the plantain salve, the mullein she dried in bundles by the window, Ma'am never said a word against it. She just walked in on a Tuesday, looked at the jars on Rebecca's shelf, and quietly moved them. Not far, just to the back, and put hers in front. I saw it happen. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was nothing. That's what the old ones knew how to do. They never fought you. They just rearranged the kitchen until it was theirs again. Rebecca and I married when I was 23 and she was 21. Her family lived 2 districts over, near the creek that runs behind the Stoltzfus farm. She had hands like her grandmother's, long fingers, knuckles already a little rough from the garden. The first time I saw her, she was carrying a basket of mullein leaves home from a sick neighbor's house. She didn't see me watching. I remember thinking, no. I remember knowing, a woman who carries other people's medicine home is a woman who knows how to keep a house alive. Dad told me once, before the wedding, "Joseph, your mother is going to have opinions. You let her have them in her own kitchen, not in yours." He was 61 when he said that. No, 62. He died the winter after. And I think part of what happened is I lost the only man who would have stood between me and Ma'am, and I didn't even know I needed someone to. The bishop talks about the husband being the head. Nobody talks about who holds the husband up. The first year was good. The second year was good. Rebecca made the lemon balm tea every night, and we'd sit on the porch with the kerosene lamp between us, and she'd talk about the garden she wanted to plant, the calendula, the chamomile, the bee balm. She wanted a healing garden. Her own, like her grandmother had. I told her yes. I told her we'd build the beds together that spring. And we did. I dug them with my own hands. The blisters opened twice on the same spot of my right palm. I still have the scar. Then our first boy was born, and Ma'am came to stay. Just to help. Just for a few weeks. That's how it started. The boy had colic. Bad. The kind that makes a small body arch and scream at 3 in the morning. The kind where you stand in the dark of the bedroom holding him and you'd give anything. Your hands, your back, your name, just to make it stop. Rebecca had her grandmother's recipe ready. Fennel seed, steeped weak, a single drop on the tongue. Her mother had used it. Her grandmother had used it. She was already at the stove with the kettle. Ma'am walked into the kitchen in her nightgown and her shawl. She didn't raise her voice. She never did. She just said, "We don't give babies fennel in this family, Joseph. We use catnip tea. That's what I gave you. That's what your gross mammy gave me." And then she looked at me. Not at Rebecca. At me. Waiting. The lamp was hissing on the table. The boy was screaming against my shoulder. Rebecca was holding the fennel jar in her hand, and I could see her thumb pressing white against the glass. I said, "Ma'am's right. We'll try the catnip first." That's all I said. 8 words. I can still count them. Rebecca set the jar down on the counter without a sound. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just turned and walked back into the bedroom and closed the door soft. Ma'am made the catnip tea. The boy quieted by morning. Maybe it was the tea. Maybe it was just time. I'll never know. But I told myself the remedy worked, and I told myself I'd made the right choice, and I went to bed that night next to a wife whose back was turned to me for the first time in our marriage. That was the beginning. I didn't see it then. You never see the beginning when you're standing in it. You only see it later, when you're looking back through the door of a house that used to be full. Here's what I didn't understand, and what no one in our community ever sat me down and said. A wife's remedies are not just remedies. They are her inheritance. They are the only thing some women carry from their mother's house into their husband's. When I let Ma'am push Rebecca's fennel jar to the back of the shelf, I wasn't choosing between 2 teas. I was telling my wife that what her grandmother taught her was worth less than what mine taught me. I was telling her that the line of women she came from ended at my front door. And I didn't know. I swear on Dad's grave, I didn't know. Ma'am wasn't a hard woman. I need you to understand that. She'd been widowed 2 years. Her house was quiet. Her hands needed something to do, and a new baby and a young wife are the easiest things in the world for an old woman's hands to fold themselves around. She wasn't trying to break my marriage. She was trying to stay useful. That's what the old ones knew how to do. They made themselves needed until you forgot how to live without them. And I let her. Every single day, for 7 years, I let her. Rebecca told me once, and I should have listened. I should have. She said, "Joseph, your mother's hands are kind. But there are only so many hands a kitchen can hold." I told her she was being sensitive. I told her Ma'am meant well. I told her 100 quiet things that all added up to the same thing. Your grandmother's recipes don't matter as much as mine. By the 3rd year, Rebecca had stopped making her lemon balm tea. I didn't notice for months. That's the part that shames me most. The little brown jar with her grandmother's handwriting on the label. Melissa, cut it flowering, moved from the front of the shelf to the back. And then one day it wasn't on the shelf at all. I found it later, in the pantry, behind the canning jars, dust on the lid. I never asked her where it went. I didn't want to know. A man can build a whole life out of not wanting to know. What I built instead was a system. Ma'am came every morning at 6. She made the coffee. She kneaded the bread. She decided what salve went on the children's scrapes and what tea went in the kettle when one of them ran a fever. Rebecca cooked the supper and washed the clothes and tended the garden. But the healing, the medicine, the small daily choices about what went into our children's bodies, those passed quietly from my wife's hands into my mother's. And I told myself it was peace. I used to joke with the men at the wood shop that I had 2 wives and only had to feed one of them. Levi laughed. Amos didn't. I should have looked closer at why Amos didn't. It was Amos who finally said something. We were stacking oak boards for the Yoder barn raising. Must have been the fall I turned 28. And he straightened up, rubbed the small of his back, and said quiet, "How's Rebecca?" I said fine. He said, "Joseph, how is she?" Not a question that time. I didn't have an answer. He looked at me a long second and said 7 words. My first wife left over less. Then he picked up another board. He'd been widowed young. That's what everyone said. He'd never corrected anyone. I stood there with a board in my hands and the sun coming down across the field. And I understood, for the first time in my life, that some men in our community carry stories the bishop never hears. Levi told me later in the dim of the wood shop, that his own mother had done the same thing to his wife. Moved into the kitchen, moved into the marriage, moved into every quiet decision until his Sarah stopped speaking at supper. I lost her for 2 years, he said. Not gone, just gone. Sitting across from me and gone. He'd had to ask his mother to stop coming. He said his hands shook for a week before he did it. He said his mother didn't speak to him for 11 months. He said it was the hardest thing he ever did, and the only thing that brought Sarah back. I listened. I nodded. I didn't do it. 4 winters passed. By the time I was 30, Rebecca and I were sleeping with our backs to each other every night, and I still hadn't said one word to my mother. The word I needed came from a book Rebecca left on the kitchen table the morning she walked out. I didn't see it until after. It was a small green book, her grandmother's herbal journal, the one she'd been copying from since she was a girl. Open to a page about lemon balm. In the margin, in her handwriting, she'd written one line: "A husband who cannot protect his wife's hands cannot protect his wife." That's it. That's the sentence. I sat down at the table with the book in front of me, and I read those words until the lamp burned low, and I felt something split open in my chest that I don't have a name for. Not anger, grief. The clean kind. The kind that finally tells you the truth. I understood, sitting there, what I had done. For the boy who married Rebecca at 23. For the young husband who thought honoring his mother meant letting her into every corner of his house. I finally saw it. He didn't know. He thought he was being a good son. He thought peace meant the absence of fighting. He didn't know that there's a kind of peace that's just a slow burial. That's what the old ones knew, and never said. That's what my dad tried to tell me before he died, and I was too young to hear. A man's first loyalty, after God, is to the woman he chose, not the woman who chose to have him. I tried to explain it to a cousin of mine who'd gone English. He runs a feed store out past Lancaster, and he just looked at me and said, "Joseph, in our world we call that being a mama's boy, and maybe that's the English word for it. But it isn't the whole word, because in our world it isn't weakness, it's obedience. It's the ordnung folded into the marrow of your bones. It's a son being told all his life that his mother is the holiest woman God will ever give him, and then being expected to know, without anyone telling him, when to set her gently aside. Nobody teaches you that part. You either figure it out or you lose your wife. I lost mine before I figured it out. What the Amish life gave me, I still carry. The smell of cut hay in July, when the field is laid open and the whole farm smells like sweet green sugar. The sound of Dat's handplane on oak. That long, soft shh that I can still hear if I close my eyes. The taste of cold spring water from the pump on an August afternoon, when your shirt is stuck to your back and the water hits your throat like a small mercy. Those are real. Those don't leave. I am homesick for a place I still live in. That's the truth. And what I know now is this: a wife's medicine is her voice. When you quiet her hands, you quiet her. Wisdom dressed in plain clothes. That's what Rebecca was, and I couldn't see it because the woman who raised me was standing in the way. Tradition and truth can sit at the same table, but only if the husband sets the table himself. I'm trying to set it now. Rebecca came back, not by morning, by spring. We are slow, we are quiet, we are learning. Her lemon balm is on the front of the shelf again. Ma'am comes on Sundays, just Sundays. That's what the old ones knew, when they were willing to know it. Love is also the word no, said gently, to the people you owe everything. If you grew up somewhere a son was taught his mother was holy and his wife was second, I see you. If you are still inside that house watching your wife go quiet, I see you. If you left, and you don't know how to go back, I see you. If you're English, and your grandmother knew a remedy nobody wrote down, and you can feel something in you reaching for it, I see you. If you lost someone because you couldn't say one hard sentence to the person who raised you, I see you. You carry something old, and that is enough. Wherever you are in this, I see you, and you are not alone. Tell me in the comments, was there a remedy, a recipe, a small piece of medicine your wife or your mother or your grandmother carried that the rest of the family didn't honor? I want to hear it. I read every one. There is so much more I haven't said yet, about the Browsher who came to our house the spring Rebecca returned, about the tincture Dat made me swear I'd never teach anyone, about the night my grandfather saved my uncle with 7 drops of something I still don't have a name for. I'm getting closer to telling those. If you want to walk with me through them, this is through them. And you can subscribe. It's free, and it tells me these old ways are worth carrying forward. A super chat or a membership says the same thing, louder. That keeps this porch lit. Honor your mother, but protect your wife's hands.